Good morning and welcome to today's personal finance show here on Dublin City FM with me, Paul Merriman from askpaul.ie. My next guest in today is Alan Lewis from Lewis Motors. Most of you will know him from probably just looking at his Instagram page and drooling over the cars that he sells, but I'm also proud to call him a mate after buying a lot of cars off him, to be fair. Alan, thanks for popping into the studio. Good to have you in.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Right, let's have a chat about business first, because obviously you've been quite successful in what you do. You have sold an unbelievable amount of cars, but also, not going to start name dropping, because no, you wouldn't do that, but a lot of Irish celebrities, from sports to music, you name it, come to you for their cars. That's a really cool niche you've carved out.
Yeah, we've been lucky that we've ironed out a little section of the market that seems to work for us, and we seem to growing and growing over the years, and more people seem to be coming to us, so it's
great.
Cool.
And in relation to, you know, people coming back, how did you actually start the business though? Because I think if somebody, especially maybe, I'm going to say myself in my early 20s, if someone had asked me in my late teens what my dream job was going to be, it would have been doing what you do, hanging around fast cars, sports cars, some of the coolest cars in the Irish marketplace every day. And also getting to meet really, really cool people. Like for most young guys, that's the dream job. But how did it actually get started?
I suppose it starts back from in school. My guidance counsellor told me that I was probably better off going straight into sales and skipping out the college scene. So I went straight down that route, and luckily enough I was offered a job before my Leaving Cert results came out, which was probably a blessing, and I was offered a job in sales in Victor Motors in Clonskeagh there, so I was selling Fiat and Alphas. Went in there as a junior, actually pretty much a gopher. I was going around just literally collecting ironing for some of the lads and getting lunches and whatever else they wanted me to do at the time, but slowly but surely, or actually quickly enough, it actually happened. I ended up into sales properly. It was crazy times. This is 2000, and like back in 2000 you were
early 2000s, yeah. It was kind
2000.
of easy enough really, to be fair, wasn't it? Yeah.
I'd like to say I'm good at my job, but no,
No,
it
yeah,
was
no, it was easy.
quite easy. People were queuing out the doors at the time, so it was natural that I was an extra salesperson. I moved quickly off into it, and we were selling Puntos to beat the band at the time, Puntos and other Fiats and Alpha as well. But
And did you love it from then, actually, the car trade, or was it just more the sales that you liked?
I loved the sales. Like I think I've fallen into cars.
Right, okay.
Through that, I've grown to love cars. I think that's more. Now, I did have a Testarossa on my wall as a kid, so that was, I did like certain cars. And my uncle, he had a car garage. And I used to go visit his car garage, and it was around the corner from Des Cullen Cars, if you remember Des Cullen Cars. So a few of the times I went around and saw Des's collection when I went to see my uncle's garage. And that probably inspired me more than anything, because I always liked the cars he had. Like, they were fantastic.
Ah, they were fantastic.
Like, fantastic. Like, and Des was a lovely man. And but like that probably, once I got into the car trade, I suppose that really, it always made me, it pushed me on. I saw my boss, Victor, who was a lovely man, gave me a chance, and it worked out for me with him. I always saw him in his office, and I always said to myself, I'd love to be that guy.
Right.
He's sitting in a very successful business. It was a great place to work. There was 20 odd of us there, and it was real fun. It was a real family setup, and we had a lot of fun. I was only there for 3 years, or 2.5, 3 years. But for those years, it was great learning curve.
And then from there, you didn't go straight into Lewis Motors, obviously, so why was the gap?
No, I then left the motor. I played a lot of sport, and I was young, and the car trade would take up.
Quite good at hockey.
I was decent enough at hockey, yeah, I could hold it. But over the years, I wanted my weekends to be able to play more sport, even though Victor was very good to me and let me go early on Saturdays to play my sport and stuff like that, and Sundays. But I wanted to have my weekends back to myself. So I got offered a job from who is now my father-in-law, selling AgFab products and photo processing products. Do you remember you used to go into like a Fuji store, an AgFab store, and print out your prints? Yeah, I know you can still do it now, but it was when everyone did with their cameras went in with them. I used to sell the products to do that, so I went around the country selling that for him. That lasted for two odd years, and then my father, quite young, passed away one day, quite suddenly. So, and from that, myself and my brother the next day pretty much took over his business, which I was only a young pup and knew nothing about it. But we said we'd give it a go, and it was doing property. He was a property agent in Romania and Hungary. And again, boom times, people were buying apartments. Not that we were selling apartments and stuff like that. We were actually involved in a golf development, so it was slightly different. But I did that for the next couple of years, which was an unbelievable learning curve. Didn't make any money from it, but it was an unbelievable learning curve. And some of the people I met kind of gave you the confidence then going forward about who you could sit down and chat to and who you could meet. And it doesn't matter who the person is, they're just a person at the end of the day. And that is
really true in fairness. So you're not intimidated by anybody walking into the showroom or anyone trying to pick up.
No.
Yeah, because of that experience.
Yeah.
That all snowballs together. So when did you start Lewis Motors?
So then, obviously, the end of the 2007, it all turned in Ireland, and from that, there was no money to pay my wages. So myself and my brother, we had a little bit that I could afford his wage. I said, look, I'll go off and I'll sell a couple of cars, and I was kind of feeding my wages through buying a car here, selling a car there, and then I literally had $5,000. And I just, one day, an opportunity, I was in a car with somebody, and they said, look, I've got 5 cars there. Do you want to buy them? It was $5,000. And I said, fine. So I took the chance, bought the 5 cars and parked them outside my house and started just slowly building on that.
Well, that is brilliant, isn't it? That's amazing. So I hope this is inspiring to people listening, especially any young people. And if anyone's listening to this and you have kids that, didn't get, or don't look like they're going to college, maybe didn't go to college, or are in that situation where they're probably starting off young in a company and they can't see the future, make sure you get them to listen back to this on Spotify. One of the Spotify, just search for Ask Paul and Dublin City FM. You get this episode from tomorrow. But I think that's a really inspiring story, especially when you're trying to get the 5 cars together and sell them in the house. After a really tough, obviously it would have been exceptionally tough after losing your dad, and then on top of that, the financial crash coming and pretty much getting you out of the business you were hoping to take over. So Lewis Motors, first 5 cars. How do you end up selling the best cars in the country? I mean, your portfolio and even your stock today, like I go up to his place and I literally sit there and I'll have a cup of coffee and just look out the window. You name it, Bentleys, Ferrari, Porsche, Lamborghinis, you name it, everything has been in your showroom. So how do you go from 5 cars for $5,000 to selling 500,000 motors? I mean, it's incredible.
Slowly.
Yes.
Slowly.
Patience.
Yeah, patience. I think I just, every penny I made, I just put back in, and slowly that does snowball. And if you, I see it a lot with guys in businesses and stuff, and they start doing well, and then they start buying a house, they buy the bigger car, whatever it is, and they've had a few good weeks, a few good months, whatever it is, and they're spending. I literally didn't spend any of it. I try to just put everything back into the company, because with the motor trade you need stock, and if you don't have stock, it's very hard to sell anything. So I just put everything back in, and 5 cars, 6, 7, and it just slowly built, and then the quality was building as well. I always bought. No, my first 5 cars weren't cool at all. weren't cool. It was a Deulanis, Hyundai Trajet, 2 Fiat Puntos. One of them was gold. I can't remember the 5th one for the life of me, but they weren't cool compared to what we're doing now. It kind of just it snowballed. I just pushed everything back into the business, and slowly but surely we got more and more.
I think some people, when they see it now, maybe on Instagram, because obviously he's done quite a good job in the social media presence. Actually, a phenomenal job, to be fair. But I think maybe people think just when you start appearing up on their Instagram feed as an overnight success, they never see the late nights, the no money, the ducking and diving, the starting off with the 5 cars. Nobody sees that, especially from an Instagram point of view today. So I think people think it's easier than it is to get this, to be this successful in the trade that you love. So, favourite car? I know I've put a question up on our Ask Paul page. I know you shared it as well yesterday. Favourite car that you've sold?
I think my favourite car is a Ferrari 458. I get asked this question a lot, and I do think it, and we've sold for Ferrari 458. Actually, we have one coming in stock this week.
If anyone's
looking for a Ferrari 458, I actually think they're great all round. All round is probably the wrong word, but they're a decent investment car as well. And just to drive, the looks. I just always remember selling the first one, and that was probably one of our first mega cars, and I was just like, this is great, this is cool.
And actually, just on that then, from a value point of view, because we're going to go with the questions now in a couple of minutes, and they're all typical questions I was expecting to come in, to be fair, But where does it kind of cross over being an investment? I'm not going to say I have a hard time calling them investments, but I do know certain cars are actually an investment. Where does that breach? Of you had somebody that had a large lump sum, loved their cars, was already financially secure. Obviously, as a financial planner, I'm going to make sure everything's in top shape before you start going buying investment for cars. But if you were, what is the investment piece? What can you see appreciating in value? And is it classics, or is it something that's 10 years old, or a select model? So like I said, let's say I give you 100 grand.
Yeah.
What would you be thinking in the back of your head that you don't want to drive it every day, you want it for the weekend, but you know it's not going to absolutely hemorrhage in value in the next few years? If anything, it might go up.
First car comes into my head is a Ferrari 360. But that's the first name in my head. But like, there's plenty of cars you can buy for good investments. Like we sold a CL65 recently, which was 40 grand. And I would have said that's a seriously good buy at 40 grand.
Right, okay.
It was an 07 car.
But that new was probably, what, 200 odd K, was it?
300 odd.
Yeah.
Like a V12, Mercedes V12 at 40. Like to me, that is a seriously good buy. I think the car currently in the UK is probably 35, 40 sterling, so you wouldn't land it for 70 or 80 grand. So that to me is a good investment car.
Right.
And anything like that's
not going to hemorrhage straight away value-wise, yeah.
They're not making very many V12s anymore, so you know,
right,
like
okay.
that sort of car.
So if you sit on it, you're not going to lose value, and in fact, you might just pick up a higher value in the future. Somebody wants the V12. Very good. You mentioned landing in from the UK. Let's have a quick chat about VRT, and probably the bane of. I remember being a kid and just getting so frustrated that in the UK you can pick up some of the best cars in the world for next to nothing because there's no VRT or very little tax on them. Number one, I'm not going to ask your thoughts on VRT because I presume you absolutely hate it with a passion.
It's a frustration more so than anything,
right?
Because it just cripples us in Ireland from having. There's a lot of money in Ireland. So
what's the biggest you've seen bill for the VRT?
That I paid?
Yeah.
Over 200 grand.
Whoa. 200k.
VRT, yeah.
Do you know what the car was? Remember?
Yeah, we had a Lamborghini. It was a Lamborghini.
Very good.
So like, you think that's only VRT. Then you've
Jeep.
got VAT.
Yes.
Then you got VAT, and you've got VAT on top of that as well. Then there could be a tariff on the car as well. Your NOx tax. It's just
NOx tax.
Yeah, no, that's not as bad.
Right, okay.
It's a smaller of the taxes, but then you take that car then on the road, you're paying €2,400 road tax most likely.
Yeah, and then you go to fill it up, and the majority of the petrol and majority of the cost of the fuel is actually going to the revenue commissioners.
I feel like there has to be a better system, but I don't know what it is, and I'd love somebody someday to figure that out. But
yeah,
it is
because they're quite strict as well, aren't they? If they do spot a yellow reg, whether it's guards or the customs, they will stop and ask questions.
I think they do, and I hear a lot that they do. So
yeah,
I've seen customers.
Because I've heard of guys trying to do this before, where they're thinking of going up north, registering, buying a house, renting an apartment, anything just to try and get a car. But it doesn't work. They're gonna nail you for your domiciled here, you live here, work here, kids here, and all that shit. But it's only a couple of days you get away with, isn't it, in the country?
Yeah, 30 days.
Right. Okay. Before you're absolutely nailed.
Yeah.
Right. Very good. So we're talking about VRT and the kind of cost of importing cars. Are most of your cars import? Is one of the questions that we have coming in. That's from Imelda. So we opened the question box yesterday. There's a few questions for me in relation to personal finance for cars. We'll get into them in a second. Are all your cars imports?
No, I'd say 10-15% is probably an import.
I think a lot of people might assume that because of the level of sports cars you have, but you sell everything. Like, it's not just cars. Like, I think a lot of people probably just. You don't show everything on Instagram. You show the cool stuff on Instagram. Yeah. I've noticed that. Yeah. That's a trend. Thoughts on electric cars? This is a really good topic because I'm very confident. Actually, I bought a Tesla off you back in the day. If anyone wants to see a really embarrassing YouTube video, go to the YouTube video for Ask Paul and you see the Tesla. It's a cool looking car. It was the first car you robbed me. I bought off you, yeah. So sorry, just sticking with electric cars for a second now. What are your thoughts on electric cars? And without trying to ditch them too much, because obviously you still sell some.
I won't ditch them. Like, as in, I there's a place for electric cars, and for certain people, electric cars work very well. I think the market has been bombarded with electric cars, and I think that might be the problem. And a lot of my frustrations with electric cars are that the ranges that are being advertised aren't actually the ranges that you can get out of these things. So
why do you not?
No, like, as in a lot of them, like, you see a 565 range, and actually the car can do 300 if you turn the radio on and turn the heat system. So those sort of things probably frustrate me more than anything. But like, a lot of that's going on at the moment with electric cars, that dumping in values, and so you take a Taycan, like I think the cheapest Taycan today, I'll have to check again, but I think it's 70 grand in the Irish market today for a 21 Taycan. Like that car new was probably only 110, probably only, but
no, we know what you mean. Yeah,
you know what I mean. It was probably 110 grand. Relatively speaking, 110 grand car, 3 years later, 4 years later.
On a trade-in, you're probably, you're looking 70 to 80
right
maybe if you're lucky, yeah.
So like, they haven't completely, not all of them have crashed. Some have, some I hear some terrible stories about them, but
I think those stories are more exaggerated only from the spec. So you start at 110, you get to 140 all of a sudden because of the way you pimp it out, but then somebody's only going to give you 70 because the car down the road is 70 and they don't really care for your preferences.
Correct.
Leather or paint and all the usual things that drive the price of the car up when it's new.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Like we sell a bit of Tesla. We don't. We sell a good bit of Tesla actually, in fairness, and I find that they're.
We did see Elon Musk though drop the price of Tesla on the back of his report on his annual report. Yeah, so feeding it down. So that's a kicker for anyone that bought a brand new one, isn't it? Really,
and that's
to be fair.
happened to us a couple of times. We've bought a good few fairly fresh stock, and all of a sudden he's changed the prices overnight, and that big time affects us because we have tight margins, and you know. When you change the prices by 10 grand, you're on the wrong side.
Yeah, you're on the wrong side of it very quickly. Yeah, I guess people don't understand. I think, to be fair to me, even before I met you, and we start talking more, popping in for coffee, talking about finance, talking about cars and values, etc. I think there's a perception out there that there's just tens of thousands to be made in selling a single car. People don't realise the tight margins that are there. Like, they think there's nearly 10 to 20 grand per car being made, when obviously not on all the cars. But if you're looking at the like that 70 grand, take-in, there's no way there's massive margin if it goes the wrong way.
No, absolutely not. And then you pay your VAT on it and depreciation. Like, you're sitting on stock that's depreciating the whole time. If you don't turn it quickly, you can get the wrong side very quickly. So people just see what you buy to what you sell and think you're making a write-off.
Yeah. Well, okay, not far off it though, fairness. What's your thoughts on the overall second-hand market value? Greg wants to know the second-hand market, and in particularly in relation to cars that are only 2 to 3 years old. What that means? I presume it means, are they going to keep the value? I mean, second-hand. Oh, I know what this means. I think someone's probably referring to in COVID-19. Remember the second-hand car market went up an awful lot. Yeah. That's over, isn't it?
It is. It is. Yeah, we're getting a bit normal now. I definitely think we're a better market than we were prior to that, prior to COVID happening, because car prices have probably got a better slant to them. They're not as you buy a car and it drops off the side of a cliff straight away, which it used to do a lot of the time, but now they're much more. I think we're getting more UK style in our pricing. So I think there's a much more gradual devaluation on cars as it goes. So
compared to where it was.
I think it's a positive thing.
Okay, very good. Economics in the car market. I want to speak to you on this because, again, every time I pop in and have a chat with you, you usually say to me, how's business? I say to you, how's business? And in fairness, you're at the kind of forefront of people that would be, I would going to call it luxury goods sales, especially with the type of cars you're shifting. What do you see in the marketplace? Where is it?
Still very strong. Still very strong, in my opinion. Yeah. We've just come off our strongest ever month. So.
Actually, you've been saying that a lot though over the last 12 months, haven't you? Yeah. Biggest month ever. Just keep beating them.
It's happened 5 or 6 times, I think, in the last 12 months. So it's I would say it's still very positive. Prices have softened, which is as a normalized rather than softened, which has happened. But, but that doesn't stop the market. Like, isn't it's I would say it's very strong.
And are you noticing much cash buyers or finance buyers, and especially with your, because a lot of your stock is probably over the 80 grand mark anyway. So we're looking at cash, finance.
I'd say our finance is only 15-20% at the moment, which is a lot lower than it was pre-COVID by far. I
remember having the chat with you as well. I think it was in with Louis Coben one day, and he was saying the same, that he's still seeing a lot of people spending money. Unfortunately, I think that's a wealth divide, to be fair. I think that Ireland's moving into that situation where the UK were maybe 20 years ago, where you have the wealthy are getting wealthy and poor, and you're getting this massive divide. Because I know a lot of people listening out there would be actually dreaming a bit, like it's never going to probably happen to buy a car for 80k. Yeah, we're talking about 15% on your finance. That's 80% of your customers are spending cash that they have in the bank. I remember speaking to you a couple of years ago, maybe early last year, thinking that was all COVID-19 kind of hangover money that was left in people's savings. But it doesn't look like that's the case, because that should be all gone by now. So this was really good, strong income still in the country, economy still doing relatively well, and people being able to go out and spend cash on cars.
All a positive.
All a positive, yeah. Well, sorry, it is. It's a positive for you for business, and it's a positive sign if people are doing it. I think it's a good thing as well that I think the biggest problem that we had 2007, 2008, because I get asked quite a lot in relation to is recession coming because things are so good or seem so good for some people, and no, it's not for everybody, but from an economy point of view. But before 2007, 2008, it was all borrowed. It was all financed up to the hilt. Like everyone, like you probably remember this in the victim, everything was financed. Nobody was spending cash. Nobody had cash. Literally everything you did was on finance. So it probably is a good thing from the market point of view. Okay, let me see. Next question. Someone knows you quite well. Are you going to move from Cabinteely? Ooh, touchy subject. No.
No plans at the moment. I've been there 15 years, love it there. It's a nice, lovely little village, and it's done well to us there. So we love being there anyway.
Okay, brilliant. Question from me, Paul. Your thoughts on PCP? Absolutely hate PCP. I think I've said it time and time again. Alan's kind of laughing here, going, "Thank God I don't sell new cars in the showroom because I would hate this chap." I'm not a big believer. somebody came in for a consultation yesterday. A fairly good client of mine. They have an investment account, and they're thinking about getting a new car, and they asked me about PCP. I was saying, look, use your investment account. That's what the investment account's for. You know, you've done it really well over the last couple of years. Spend your cash, don't be borrowing. But I was explaining to him and his wife, the PCP contract is the same contract that's always been there. It's a balloon payment. So this guaranteed future value is just a balloon payment. So the biggest thing that the car industry have managed to do, in my opinion, is just rebrand a balloon payment into a guaranteed future value. Now, the problem I have with that is that I think a couple of years ago, You're just thinking of people that hate me right now. I can see the grin in his face. And many people can just go annoyed on a Saturday morning. But I think the problem for it is, and we talk about interest rates now, because you would have seen this as well, because you are doing a bit of lending, 15% as you mentioned. So when you do a PCP contract, years ago when those PCP contracts were 0%, you probably give a deposit, and then, 3 years later you come back. You're very unlikely getting 3% across the market now. Some of them will still give you maybe 0%, but the majority of those finance on the 3 year, when you have to come off that introduction rate for 3 years, they're 7, 8, even 9%. I've heard of 10% in some garages. So that's excruciating. That's just another balloon payment that you owe. My advice to the client in particular was take the cash, buy a car for a year or two old, stop the depreciation, and don't borrow. And whatever you are going to put into the repayment, 500, 600, 800 quid a month, put that back into the investment account and build your savings, your cash back up. What's your thoughts on them? You can't say, can you?
PCP works great if your car depreciates quickly and the bank has to take the pain on it. But but
if you don't want a car.
Yeah,
they take the pain if you don't want a car, but most people unfortunately need a car after 3 years. And that goes back to the next question to me, PCP or car finance. I kind of just answered that in what I've said. I would always be going cash if you can. Not many people, well, 85% of Alan's customers have cash, but the average Joe out there probably needs to go borrow to buy a car. I would like to see a car finance. Cheapest place, just shop around, go to the credit union, go to the dealership, could have good rates, and then go just check all the banks. You don't have to go to your own bank, but you should be able to just check out any bank and see wherever you can get the cheapest finance is the biggest way to go on this, in my opinion. What's your thoughts in relation to the interest rates, Alan? Like, you've seen a big move in this.
Yeah, we've seen a move over the last few years. We've always been able to keep ours quite relatively low compared to what we see out there sometimes, but it definitely has had an effect on people wanting to borrow because the rates are higher. Have
you noticed them getting stricter than the underwriters? I felt they were quite loose for car finance compared to where they were maybe 6 or 7 years ago. It was difficult to get a car, not difficult, but they were a little bit more tighter. But are they a little bit more freer now? Given the car,
yeah, I would say they're freer.
They've moved in the right direction.
There's competition out there for loaning, so like as in I think they're all battling with each other to get loans because there's less people financing. So
right, okay. So it's the competition's kind of keeping them hungry for the business, I suppose. That's it for this week, guys. Thanks as always for tuning in. Remember, if you want to get involved in the show, if you want to ask a question in the future on a personal team from a finance team, I'll quote that. Okay. Remember, if you want to get involved in the show by asking a question on personal finance or picking a money team song, please drop me a DM on my Instagram page, askpaul.ie, or WhatsApp on us here in Dublin City FM on 087 179 1032.